In 2017, certain players resorted to smacking a trash can. In 2023, they attempted to injure key players on the only other team threatening their chances of another postseason run. Framber Valdez threw his third and final four-seam fastball of the 2023 season directly at Nathaniel Lowe's face. When the Rangers signed Nathan Eovaldi, there was little buzz around the acquisition, mainly because his deal happened right after Christmas Day, and more candidly, DeGrom putting on a Rangers uniform was significantly more exciting than Eovaldi doing the same. Eovaldi's previous 5 years in Boston were good, but his postseason heroics in 2018, though, will cement him as a Red Sox legend for decades. Eovaldi's 6-inning relief outing in Game 3 of the World Series was one of the most masterful postseason pitching performances that unfortunately ended in a loss. What made this pitching performance so impressive is that on only one day of rest, he managed to throw 97 pitches and still top out at 101 miles an hour. What made this outing legendary, though, is that he pitched from the 12th to the 18th inning. Max Muncy's walk-off home run came at the 7-hour, 20-minute mark of this ballgame. It was an emotional loss for the Red Sox and Eovaldi, but they would ultimately get the last laugh as they would defeat the Dodgers in Game 5 of the Fall Classic. All things considered, this performance locked Nathan Eovaldi's 2018 postseason ERA at an incredible 1.61. The Rangers knew this level of composure and elite execution, regardless of what a leverage index says, would be vital for a team with hopes and dreams of performing in October. You certainly aren't signing players with the sole intention of utilizing them in the postseason, but it is an added bonus to know that they have the skill set to compete under the highest of stakes. There was one thing the Rangers didn't know about Eovaldi when they signed him 2 days after Christmas. They didn't know that he'd be the de facto ace of this ball club in the wake of Jacob deGrom's departure from the season. I mean, it wasn't even May yet, and yet Eovaldi was thrown again into a high-pressure situation where his team desperately needed him to perform. And that's exactly what he did. And it started with this game against the Yankees.
Lifted. Left field. Thompson is there, and how about that? Nathan Eovaldi with a shutout of the Yankees.
This 3-hit complete game shutout against the Yankees was wickedly impressive and marked the start of a 2-month run for this team spearheaded by Eovaldi, in which the Texas Rangers were unstoppable. The weight of deGrom's injury became so much less to bear, largely in part to Eovaldi coming out the next day and absolutely shoving. He set the tone for this team, and the Rangers would end up taking 3 of 4 games against the Yankees to get them into the month of May. Up and down the entire roster, it was as if the Rangers front office had perfectly calculated a best-case scenario for nearly all of the players on their 26-man roster. After the team's win on May 14th against the Oakland Athletics, the Rangers had a plus 97 run differential over their first quarter of the season and were averaging 6.23 runs per game. Prior to 2023, only 13 teams since 1901 posted a run differential that good through the first 40 games of the season. And among those teams, 11 went to the postseason and 9 went on to win the World Series. On May 19th, Adolis had just concluded a 5-game home run streak in which he now led the American League in both home runs and RBIs. On May 23rd, Marcus Semien and Nathan Eovaldi led the American League in F4 for hitters and pitchers respectively. And by June 6th, after a walk-off win over the Cardinals, the Rangers would find themselves with a 4.5-game lead in the AL West with a record of 40-20. From April 29th to July 1st, the Rangers' offense led Major League Baseball in doubles, runs, batting average, hits, and on-base percentage. As you're probably picking up by now, there were multiple moments in the first half of the Rangers' 2023 season that defined this team. There were plenty of impressive performances within the 57 games that were played during this time frame with both the pitching staff and the offense. The Rangers won 35 of these 57 games from DeGrom's injury to the end of June. By the end of another Eovaldi masterclass in a July 1st start against the Astros, the Rangers were now 50-33 with a 5-game lead over Houston. It was right around this time for the Rangers that they also learned that for the first time in 10 years, they would have a position player start in the MLB All-Star Game. In fact, 4 of the 5 infield spots would have a Ranger locked in as a starter. 6 Texas Rangers were going to be represented in the All-Star Game for the first time in well over a decade. It's perfectly normal to have a few guys who perform exceptionally well on a baseball team. But what's not normal is having half of your starting lineup be in the top 10% of baseball players in productivity, value, and efficiency. In 18 separate games to this point in the season, the Rangers scored 10 or more runs. They would lead Major League Baseball in 2023 with 26 of these 10-run games. Only 5 other teams managed to even reach the 18-game mark that the Rangers reached on June 28th. But even despite putting up double-digit runs in 15% of their games, the Rangers were not immune to losing in these situations. In fact, on the 19th occasion in which the Rangers scored 10 runs, they lost to Houston in Arlington. And if you ask me, this was the loss that completely changed the course of the Texas Rangers 2023 season. In the 26 games the Rangers scored double-digit runs, this was the game that was their sole blemish on an otherwise perfect record in such situations. The 12-11 final score on July 3rd doesn't tell the whole story, and frankly, no box score between the Astros and Rangers ever tells the full story of a game between these two teams. It had been about 3 months since either of these two teams played a series against each other, despite being within just a handful of games over the AL West title for the entirety of the season. July 3rd's contest was the last of a 4-game series in which the Astros very much looked like the superior Texas team, outside of Eovaldi's start and corresponding win. Houston had very much been in the hunt for the entirety of the 2023 season, and for what it's worth, they were in the midst of their own title defense after winning the 2022 World Series against the Phillies. But if there was any genuine threat in the American League who maybe had a shot of dousing the Astros' chances of going back-to-back, it was the Rangers. Luckily for Houston, they have notoriously played well at Globe Life Field. Since the opening season of the new ballpark in 2020, the Astros are 23-14 on the road in Arlington, and they went 6-1 in 2023. By this point in the Silver Boot Series, the Astros once again looked like the superior team, and more than likely quelled any fears of being usurped in October by another AL team, regardless of anyone's win-loss record come October. But if there is anything assured about the 2023 Texas Rangers, it's that they know how to score runs, and they also hate losing to Houston. So despite being down 10-2 in the bottom of the 4th inning,
lined out to left field, base hit for Josh Young. Breaking ball, and that one is smashed into right field. And he hits that ball a mile. Deep out to right, it is gone! And this one into right field, base hit. And he goes right after this one, lines it past first. And there's 2-2 pitch, ground ball up the middle, that's a base hit. That one lined into left, that's a base hit for Young. Inside again, ball 4, they are loaded up. Lines that one over third, that's a base hit, gets down, 1 run is in. And there's a slow bouncer shortstop, it'll get a run to the plate. They throw out Taveras. There's a swing, and a blast, deep out to left, it is gone! And we're tied at 10!
When I said that this game completely changed the course of the Rangers season, there are 2 very specific reasons for that claim. The first of them was this moment. Adolis Garcia's 21st home run of the year not only tied the game at 10 apiece, but it also vaulted him over Shohei Ohtani and Matt Olson for the most RBIs once again in Major League Baseball. This swing brought in a new era for Adolis Garcia, one in which he became the common villain for the Astros fanbase and the only active player for Rangers fans who may be more well-liked than Corey Seager. It was the final of 7 home runs hit between these two teams during this game, and it ultimately led way for a highly efficient 8th inning in which the Rangers would move Leody Taveras from first to second to third to ultimately having him score on a Corey Seager sacrifice fly. The Rangers put up 9 unanswered runs over the course of 5 innings and brought with it a win probability swing of 1% in the 4th to 86% in the 8th. This brings us to the second moment in this game and probably the more important one to remember. No one else in the Rangers bullpen had a better ERA than Will Smith's .270 mark when he took the mound. He led the Rangers with 14 saves and was firmly cemented as the Rangers' best 9th inning option over Jose Leclerc or Josh Sborz. The bullpen was always a concern for the Rangers in 2023. I mean, it has been for many years before the season, but this was the day in which the Texas Rangers' most reliable arm to this point would usher them into a new identity. This was the game in which the Texas Rangers became known as the team who would almost certainly blow a close game in the 9th inning.
Abreu sends one to left, back on it goes Jankowski. It is over his head and off the wall. Tucker's gonna score. We're tied up. The ball scoots away. Abreu will hold up with an RBI double. We're tied at 11. Now Chas McCormick, the hero yesterday, delivers again. In comes Abreu. This Astros team back in front. What a crazy game. It's 12-11.
With Will Smith's second blown save of the season, the saves and blown saves category would become identical at 15 apiece for the Texas Rangers. By the end of the season, they would be atop the MLB with 33 blown saves, meaning that in the 76 remaining games to this point in the season, nearly 1 in 4 of those games would be blown by a Texas Rangers relief pitcher. If you didn't think that it was hard enough in this moment, this identity would sit even more firm exactly 3 weeks later on July 24th. In this game, the Rangers held the lead in the 9th inning. A semi-controversial challenge is lost and the final score is 10-9 ball game. Another blown save in which the Rangers had a greater than 80% chance of winning the game. The next day, on July 25th, the Rangers would lose to the Astros once again, and now only have a 1-game lead in the AL West. One more Astros win to close the series would induce a tie for first in the AL West and seal a divisional tiebreaker between both teams. Now, the Rangers weren't necessarily playing bad baseball in July, but they had 10 wins and 10 losses in the month leading up to this game. 4 of those losses came from Houston. There was a lot on the line leading up to this final regular season game in Houston, but if there's any game from 2023 that deserves a deep rewind, it is 100% this game for sure. So grab your popcorn if you haven't already. It's time for some fireworks.
Well, I told him when Nate hit the home run, I said, we're going to win this game.
It's July 26th, 2023. Andrew Heaney was tasked with taking the bump and with a win would bring the Rangers to a 2-game lead in the division. Falling to the Astros yet again would allow them to clinch the Silver Boot Series with more than 2 whole months of baseball still to play and relegate the Rangers to a wildcard spot. If you aren't familiar with the Silver Boot Series, candidly, it's a pride contest, but it does make for good content and it's an even greater stage for an in-state rivalry between these two teams. The Astros have slapped the Rangers around since 2017, so understandably, they had the confidence going into facing the Rangers' number 5 starter that they would once again play big brother to the Texas Rangers. Framber Valdez, the Astros' best starting pitcher over the last few years, was slated to take the mound on the other side of this game. Couple that with the return of both Yordan Alvarez and Jose Altuve to the Astros lineup, and you can reasonably assume confidence levels for Houston were sky high. This game was a mismatch on paper, and the Astros knew it too. So by the time Alex Bregman stepped up for his first at-bat with 2 runners on base, you could kind of assume that something bad was about to happen.
Into the top 10 in the league in RBIs with 63. Bregman drives one deep to left field. 3-run bomb for Breggy.
With only a single out recorded, the Astros took a 3-0 lead in the bottom of the first. This was a gut punch to the Rangers and pure elation for the Houston crowd. Framber Valdez hardly allows more than a couple of earned runs during his starts, and that one swing may have been just enough run support to go and win this game. That entire thought process, though, would take a momentary backseat because just 3 pitches later, Yordan Alvarez would take an 0-2 fastball from Andrew Heaney directly to the shoulder. Houston naturally rained down boos at Heaney, obviously assuming that this surely was retaliation for the previous hitter taking him deep, right? Well, let's think through this. Willingly giving up a free base on an 0-2 pitch after just giving up 3 runs is pretty counterintuitive, let alone to Houston. Alvarez statistically doesn't hit the ball as hard or as frequently on pitches up and in. Unfortunately, this ball was just a lot more up and in than Heaney probably expected. You could say, based on the location and the control that Heaney has, this could be perceived as intentional, but for the stakes at hand for the Rangers, it's highly doubtful to provoke the biggest guy on the other team, let alone the 40,000 Astros fans that were already jeering all around you. Jose Abreu came up to the plate next, and on Heaney's 30th pitch of the first inning, Abreu rolled over and grounded out into a double play. Moving on to the top of the 3rd inning, Leody Taveras is leading off to start the inning against Framber Valdez. Taveras takes a 2-0 pitch deep to right field and is ultimately robbed of a home run by Kyle Tucker. Houston is absolutely bouncing as Marcus Semien steps up to the plate for his second at-bat. But let's pause for a moment. What I didn't mention earlier is that Marcus Semien and Nathaniel Lowe both singled off Valdez to start this game. It ultimately didn't matter in terms of run production as Houston got out of the inning with 0 damage, but it very well may have meant something to Framber Valdez, because on the very first pitch of Semien's second at-bat, Valdez sent a message even louder than the Houston crowd.
Marcus Semien did not appreciate that. Valdez turned away right away.
While you could easily make an argument for Heaney's misfire at Alvarez, Valdez's case is a lot less easy to justify for one main reason. Valdez does not throw 4-seam fastballs. and Marcus Semien got drilled with a four-seam fastball. This is every single pitch thrown by Framber Valdez in 2023, all 2,950 of them. Up to this point in the 2023 season, Framber Valdez had thrown one four-seam fastball in a game in June. It doesn't even look like Martin Maldonado was expecting Framber to throw this pitch because he misses a very catchable ball. To better understand why this is such a big deal, you have to understand that Valdez is well regarded as having one of the best left-handed sinkers in baseball. Why in the world would a pitcher known for his devastating sinker choose to throw only the second four-seam fastball of the year on the first pitch to Marcus Semien? I know what my answer is, and I can probably tell what Marcus's answer was in that moment too. Semien was left to cool off at first, and two batters later, Nathan Eovaldi came up for his second at-bat and proceeded to record another hit off Valdez. But this time, he launched a curveball 400 feet into the stands. As Semien crossed home plate, still understandably pissed at the situation at hand, he exchanged a few words with catcher Martin Maldonado. The direct quote that was reported from this conversation is that Semien simply told Maldonado, "We're going to win this game."
You know, obviously Andrew did not try and hit Jordan. And I got hit with a four-seam fastball from a sinker baller. Felt like it was on purpose. I walked to first base. I ended up scoring on a home run. I told Martin, we're going to win this game.
It was still 3-2 in favor of Houston, but what Marcus was alluding to was something important. The Rangers, while down, were hitting the ball very hard off of Valdez. The Rangers came back out in the top of the fourth, and with 2 outs in the inning, strung 3 base hits from Mitch Garver, Robbie Grossman, and Leody Taveras to tie the game at 3 apiece and once again bring up Marcus Semien. Semien's third at-bat would also only last one singular pitch, but instead of a Valdez fastball landing in Semien's ribcage, it was a sinker that ended up in the left field seats.
That is gone! What an answer for Marcus Semien!
When rounding third base, Semien chirped at Valdez with Maldonado waiting for him at home plate. Instead of saying much back to the Astros catcher his second time scoring, Marcus Semien simply put his pointer finger over his lips, shushed Maldonado, and jogged back to the dugout. Marcus Semien very rarely shows emotion on a baseball diamond, and this game brought out a side of him that very seldomly makes an appearance as openly and as impactfully as it did in this game. Coming into this game knowing the divisional stakes, then getting drilled with a pretty intentional looking fastball, and ultimately cranking a home run to put your team in the lead is the type of moment that teams can really rally around. Marcus Semien is a leader, and rather than charging the mound or letting the moment overcome who he is as a ball player and a person, he let what he did on the field speak for himself. To Marcus, the Rangers, and most of the baseball world, hushing Maldonado was probably justified, or at the very least, understandable. The sentiment inside the ballpark for Houston and its fans slowly turned from confidence to anger as this game, which was not even halfway over at this point, had more tension than what's probably healthy for a regular season game in July. Framber Valdez had ultimately let his team down. 6 earned runs and only 1 strikeout were both the worst marks Valdez had posted all season and were more than likely a direct result of the tension he felt in this game. After Semien's home run, Valdez walked Ezekiel Duran on 5 bad pitches to bring Nathaniel Lowe to the plate for his third at-bat. Lowe too worked the count to 3-1 after Valdez had just thrown a sinker in the dirt, moving Duran to second base. Rather than accepting the fact that MLB's best offense was simply firing on all cylinders, or respecting the fact that warnings had just been given out to both teams, or just trying to get his team back in the game, Valdez crumbled. On his last pitch of the game, Framber Valdez threw his third and final four-seam fastball of the 2023 season directly at Nathaniel Lowe's face.
He's just put another base runner on.
What's the point of issuing warnings
I
if
don't know.
that's not going to get a guy kicked out?
If you're doing the math at home, you'd be correct in noting that the only times Valdez threw a regular fastball was on accident, at Marcus Semien's ribcage, and now at Nathaniel Lowe's skull. Now this was obviously Valdez's last pitch of the game, not because he was thrown out, believe it or not, but because manager Dusty Baker had to come out and make the change himself. If there was any belief that Alvarez's hit by pitch was intentional, then what do you call either of these pitches from Valdez? What's truly mind-boggling to me is that Lowe's near hit by pitch wasn't even the boiling point of this game either. The following inning, the Rangers would more than double their run total and score 7 more runs, capped by an absolute missile of a grand slam from Adolis Garcia. The score was now 13-3, and after stepping on home plate to record that 13th run, Eovaldi got his turn to approach Maldonado, and chaos ensued. When you are blowing out a team this badly, it's pretty hard to have something to truly fight about. I can understand the justification for clearing the benches from a hit by pitch, but Garcia had by this point established himself as Houston's least favorite Texas Ranger, and ultimately was the exclamation point to what Semien told Maldonado 2 innings earlier. They were in fact going to win this game. Interestingly enough, was Maldonado and Semien who were ejected at the end of this skirmish, not Adolis or Valdez or any pitchers from either side. The Rangers, though, would hold on to a win by a score of 13-5, and would still hold on to the lead in the AL West for now. This was an incredibly emotional game for both Texas baseball teams, and it was incredibly telling of just how equal this rivalry was. For several years, it had seemed like the Rangers were in a one-sided battle against Houston. All the Astros had to do for years was point at the scoreboard and let that do any of the talking. This game, though, showed that the Astros did care after all. Not only that, they care deeply about winning, and especially winning against the Rangers. Houston proved in this game that when they want something, it doesn't matter what stands in the way. They'll do whatever they can to win. In 2017, certain players resorted to smacking a trash can. In 2023, they attempted to injure key players on the only other team threatening their chances of another postseason run and division title. This game was an isolated and yet extremely important event from the 2023 season. It wouldn't be the last time that these two teams would face each other, but would be the final instance the Rangers would feel like they had the upper hand during the regular season. The emotions and intensity of this game also overshadowed the fact that the Rangers once again scored double-digit runs against a formidable opponent. On a broader scale, the Rangers after the All-Star game really started showing signs of potentially falling apart. We knew that the bullpen was bad, and that they were getting back to their historical inadequacies, but truly, how bad did things get for the team?